Hey, what's up everyone? I have various things to discuss for this video. This is going to be a personal topic video, basically things that have happened to me personally. Particularly most all day yesterday and most of the week last week. I had these bursts of energy that were difficult to really explain. It's like I was able to do more than I've been able to do in a long time. I've been able to actually accomplish things, be able to actually, most of the time I feel very, I'm limited in what I have. I feel very crappy most of the time. I can't hardly do what other people, ordinary people, can be able to do on a normal daily basis. But then, this past week, my energy has been heightened, and I've been very talkative, and just talk, and just, on point, basically. So my energy was super heightened, as you see why I chose to make this the background for this video, the Cyball, this Cyball picture. I've done that since I was like 4 or 5 years old and didn't even know what I was doing then. I used to move my hands side by side, rotate them in a circle, and I would feel this magnetic energy back and forth, back and forth. It's like a pulsating energy back and forth between the two hands, where it would get further and further apart. They would get further and farther apart from each other to where you could feel this magnetic energy. It felt like two magnets pushing against each other. Now that's the introduction to this energy manipulation and energy type thing, and strange things I've been able to do my entire life. So one of the strange situations that happened was all day yesterday, children would just look at me just like in awe. They would be with their parent, and they would with their parents or whatever, they would just be looking at me in the grocery store. They would just be looking like, and they would point at me, and it's like they could see something. And they could see this strangeness or see something, and they were just looking in awe, looking up sideways at me, just looking up at me, and every turn they make, they would look back at me. And that's happened to me before, but usually when my energy is heightened, and I have felt that my energy has been heightened lately, within the past week particularly. So these children were just staring at me, and then I go into another aisle, and there's this other little kid, and this little child's just staring at me, and he points up at me. His mom nods, and they move on, and I'm just thinking, like, what are these people going to think? Like, what are these parents going to think? Why their children are just so in awe over me? But I was walking by, and people have been very attracted to me lately. People have been they've just really liked me and just wanted to go all out to speak to me, and just stared at me. It's been my energy has attracted a lot of people this week. And whether it be just people in general, just everyone. People have just girls have wanted to talk to me, people have wanted to speak with me, people have wanted to engage in conversation with me, people have stared at me, and people have there's this strange energy that's been heightened this week. Everyone's wanted to speak to me and just stare at me. So, with that being said, these little children were just looking at me. One pointed up at me in this other aisle, and I just moved on. I just kind of nodded and smiled at them, and he just pointed at me. Then he turned back around and kept pointing. And then, as I walked on off, this happened again multiple times throughout the day. So then we went out to eat together, and this was yesterday evening. Well, actually it was early afternoon, evening. And so we went out to eat, and when we sat down, there was this group, this family with several little children, and suddenly my mama noticed that the little child she told me about it later, this little child just started putting her arms outward. And she was looking at me, just focused, like she was focusing energy. And she made this type, that's like what the type her hands were doing. Then, all of a sudden, her arms got wider apart, until they were till she was in this cross-like shape. So her arms were wide apart from each other. like she was focusing energy directly onto me, and maybe she could see something that we couldn't there, and maybe she literally seen the energy. I haven't been able to see energy like I did in the past, but I felt it for sure. And she stared at me, and my mama was stating that she just got into the floor and she just started staring at me, and then she put her arms outward, farther, just far apart, and just focused on me and kept staring at me. And it was this Mexican family, and they and their children were there, and the child was looking up at me. He was just looking at me, and Mama stated that I was facing the other direction. I was eating. We were at this booth, and so I was facing the other direction, so I didn't see her. But she suddenly started staring at me, and every move that I made when I got up to get the food and then come back to the table, she was still staring at me apparently, and had her arms outward, focusing on me. And Mama said she looked at her and then was just like, it was very weird seeing someone do that, but she focused, just had her arms outward, just like, this is the position, her arms were outward like that. Her arms were facing outward, just like that, but she was focusing right on me, just kind of like this, but focusing directly at me,